Welcome to the Power of One. Today we're going to be speaking with Florence and Wilbur from NET. They are from a community umbrella agency under the leadership of DHS. Please pay close attention to this show because there are many parents, grandparents, and family members that need to know how to care for someone if something happens to some of the children in their family. Welcome to the show, Wilbur and Flo. Florence, please tell me how your life changed at the age of 17.
Well, I would begin with, by the time I was 17, we lost 3 siblings and my father. So unity was practiced to another level in my family. So by the time I was 17, it was my habit to go to school, come home, and take care of my nieces and nephews. At 17, I was not living in the family home, but I moved back to the family home because of my sister. She went out one day for her birthday and she never returned. I had a habit of going to the home on the weekend, but I would come from work to check on my nieces and nephews. And I went Friday and no one was there. So that bothered me because someone was always there. I went Saturday and no one was there. I went Sunday and someone was there, but they was hiding from me. It was my oldest nephew. He was hoping that his mother would come home one of those days. And he hid himself in the closet from me because he didn't want to tell me that she wasn't home. So I was 17 at that time, and I had to get him dressed and take him with me to the apartment. And that's pretty much how that went.
Now, how old was your nephew?
He was 9.
Okay, and he had 2 other siblings?
Yes, they weren't home at the time. My family, like I said, my mother was big on unity and unifying as a family. So someone always had one of these children. They were always with somebody, a godmother, a cousin, an aunt. So we all pitched in with these children as I was being raised. So at that time, both of them was out of the home. The younger 2, it's 2 more. It's their stair steps. It's an 8 and a 7-year-old. They weren't home.
Okay, so the 9-year-old was home when your sister was going out to celebrate her birthday and he was left home by himself for the whole weekend?
He was supposed to be left home, which was not, I can't say it was a surprise to him. He was used to his mother stepping out and coming back in, but she always came back. And then this was the first time she's never came back.
So my question is, was your sister murdered?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So your sister was murdered.
Yes.
Okay. Now, once your family was able to lay your sister to rest, what steps were taken to raise her 3 children?
Well, like I said in the beginning, I wasn't living in the family home. Everyone had moved out of the family home. She was the only one in the home with her 3 children. So the first step was for me to move back to the family home. So I moved back into the family home, myself and my mother, and we began to do things to fix up the house. After that, I went to welfare to get some assistance. We needed help. So that was the first step, to get some assistance from the welfare office. DHS did not get involved until we needed full custody of the children. Because like I stated, family members and their intentions weren't bad. Everybody just had a different ideal of what raising these children was going to look like. And a lot of them wanted to separate this one and take that one. So my mother wanted them to be raised together, and she was the overall next to kin. So that's what we did. We raised them together. So we had to go to DHS and get full custody because the father was still alive, and he was doing things to sign off his rights for financial gain. So we were having a lot of issues with different people.
Okay. So you said you contacted DHS. How instrumental was DHS in helping you care for your nieces and nephew?
Well, the the system itself was very helpful. At the time, kinship care wasn't that big of a deal, and it had just started at that year. I want to say that was 89. Around that year, kinship care had just began. But I knew that they had all the documentations that I needed because my youngest nephew wasn't in school and I needed to enroll him in school. So I needed documentation to enroll him in school. So that was my first step, just to get the documentations that they had so I could get my nephew in school. But DHS was very helpful because they gave us full custody of all my mother, of all the children without any problem. And that allowed us to get more control in the house because of all the different opinions of what this should look like for these children was causing a lot of confusion in the household.
Okay. So tell me where you work now. And do you help children now? And did you ever reflect back to say, this is amazing because now I can help someone who may be in the situation that I was in when I was just 17 years old?
Well, I work for NET and I work in the division that is called aftercare. I'm an aftercare worker, which I do work with families and individuals that are closing DHS cases. So I'm just basically a resource and a support or advocate for them to successfully close their case. I do reflect on what I did at a young age because I feel like if you're not helping other people, because this life is about other people, I feel like you're not really living. So even though it was the hardest thing next to giving birth to children, it was the most rewarding as well.
Okay. Okay. Well, I am so glad that your nieces and nephew had you and your mom to care for them and most importantly, to keep them together. How are they doing today?
They are all well. They're all married with their own families now. All of them are doing really good.
That's good. That is so good to hear. Wilbur, you've been with NET for quite some time. Please tell us what your position is, what NET is, and please explain the CUA, the Community Umbrella Agencies.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Wilbur Child. I am the Director of Community Support Services for NET CUA1, which is located in the 25th District. We do all things child welfare for the 25th District of North Philadelphia. NET is a community-based organization that does a plethora of things. They do everything from youth shelters to drug and alcohol to child welfare and adoption. NET has been around for quite some time now. And we are lucky to work for the CUA, which is a community umbrella agency that there are 10 of them throughout the city of Philadelphia. We represent the first, not for the best reasons. We've had the most GPS reportings in the city, which is why when DHS came up with this model, they decided to, start their first CUA here in North Philadelphia. And so, my background has just been in helping families, being a resource, and providing community engagement activities that are not only supportive to our case families, but also our families in the community to prevent them from entering the system.
Okay. So now, when we hear the word DHS, let's be honest, people are like, DHS, it's not a pretty word, and people often think it's something negative associated with DHS. I learned about the CUAs years ago when I was a part of Tabor, which is in the northwest section of Philadelphia. So the CUAs, how are they set up? Like with the community-based agencies, like with Northwest Victim Services, we're set up by police districts. How are the CUAs set up? And tell me the benefit of the CUA to assist DHS. So if something was to happen We don't want children removed from their homes where they can't attend the same school or attend the same church. So break down for me why the CUAs were created and how they're set up.
So I'll start from the last and start. So the CUAs are set up by police district as well. There are 10 of them throughout the city of Philadelphia. NET in particularly, we represent CUAs 1 and 7, which is the 25th and the 22nd district. And about 10 years ago, Philadelphia reformatted the child welfare functions throughout the city, and basically modeled the child welfare system through a new IOC model, improving outcomes from children. They realized that, you know, providing a community-based model that allowed for the families to stay within their place of origin would provide the families and the children a better opportunity of reunification and a sense of normacy. With this approach, case management services for the children and families involved would go through the community umbrella agencies, which will be able to provide the families with local resourcing. So a lot of times, our families used to have to go from, you know, North Philadelphia all the way to Southwest Philadelphia, and so on and so forth. So with creating the community umbrella agencies, it really put the onus back on the direct community to be a resource, be a link and network, and to support. So that concept of building a village, with the CUAs, you are able to do so. You are able to put some of that onus not just on the families, but also on the community, on the community and the stakeholders in the community that are there to help us thrive. And so we work with foster parents, we work with recruiting new foster homes, whether it be, you know, African American, Latino, LGBTQ families, making sure that we have a well-rounded set of homes to place children depending on what they're coming into care for. And in a nutshell, you know, that's where we are right now as far as how the child welfare system is set up through DHS. We are contracted through DHS, very governed by DHS as far as like what our outcomes are. But we have seen a lot of growth and a lot of changes and really a lot of ownership from community members through this current model.
Okay. Now, Florence spoke about kinship care.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, her sister was murdered and her sister had 3 children. Is it so that DHS or the CUA would try to find the next of kin within the family so the children can be with them and not separated? Like Flo and her mother did not want her nieces and nephews and grandma didn't want her grandchildren separated. Is that what normally occurs? And is that what kinship care entails?
So in the past, I would say it would behoove me not to say that wasn't practice. But within the past 10 years, there have been a lot of initiatives that have not only influenced the way child welfare works in the city, but really changed what it looks like on a federal level. So currently, all the CUAs participate in FEI, which is Family Engagement Initiative. So that is making sure that before we try to place a kid in general foster care, that we've done our due diligence of reaching out and finding family members that are willing, able, and will meet qualifications in order to provide these services and resources for their family member. You know, even as far as reaching out to the paternal and the maternal side, making sure that we've exhausted all of our resources, because the data shows that if you keep a child within their place of origin where they have some normalcy of friends and neighbors and family, and put them in a home where they're connected to family, they're less likely to inherit other things, mental health, or just a few different other issues that might come about when you're bouncing from home to home, the foster home, and encountering other different traumas. So minimizing the trauma as well as keeping them close to the family is always the goal. So the practice is more to make sure that we've exhausted all of our options. And even after we've exhausted them, if a family member comes about, to revisit that, to make sure that the family is able to stay within their home of origin and their comfort zone.
That's awesome. And you touched on being trauma informed, which is so important. Going back to Florence, that her 9-year-old nephew was probably traumatized that mom did not return because he knew mom's pattern, even being 9 years old. So being trauma informed is very, very important. So if someone wanted to become a foster parent or to adopt, can they reach out to NET, or do they reach out to DHS and then DHS puts them in contact with a community umbrella agency in their district?
They can actually do both. They are open to do both. So the way the foster and adoption system excuse me, is working now, currently, we recruit in a big bucket. So we have senior resource homes coordinators that are solely responsible for going out to community events and tabling and connecting us to anyone who even just has an inquiry about being a foster or adoptive parent. So they can reach out to NET, and this little plug, if you so choose, at 215-408-4967. Or, visit us at netcenters.org, which you can also submit an inquiry about being a foster or adoptive parent. But if you can't remember that, it's so easy. Everyone knows DHS, even though sometimes it comes with a negative connotation. You can go right onto their website and you can submit your inquiry about becoming a resource parent, foster parent, or adoptive parent. And they will funnel that information to the appropriate organizations, contingent upon zip code most of the times, and language, I guess, right now, because we do most of our CUAs, we have some, Asian speaking languages, we have some Spanish speaking, we have some Haitian, we have some French. So we have these very pocketed areas where, language is big. And so those organizations are able to provide those resources for those demographics as well.
Okay. So Flo and Wilbur, working with NET, please tell me, and Flo, we'll start with you, Florence, what do you see as the biggest strengths for the community-based agencies, community umbrella agencies?
I think I want to say what we talked about in the community I was raised in the urban community, in the Black community, people of color, I'm going to say. DHS in welfare had a negative spin on it. We always felt some kind of way about being on welfare or getting DHS involved. So I would say today, I honestly feel and see and think that they don't want to take your children from you. They really don't. They want to be a resource to help us be more successful. I can't say in my younger years, I felt that way or saw that, but I do see it now, that they don't want to come snatch your children out of the home. They want to be a resource in our community for us so we can have a stepping stool to, be successful, to reunify with our children or our communities or just be just a resource. So I would say that is the largest strength that I think is a good resource in our community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Wilbur?
I think from my perspective, one of the biggest strengths and that the CUA and that the restructuring of DHS provides now is the ability for the community to self-heal and self-support, right? I think that in the past, it was very easy to just be in the system, but virtually hard to get out of the system. And I think providing folks with a community-based resource that is local to them, that is familiar, that speaks their language, that is comfortable, gives the people a sense of this is okay, right? Because, when you got to go down to DHS, it does something to you. When you got to go into the courthouse, it does something to you. When you got to carry your baby to those places, and we talk about the cradle to prison pipeline and preparing and having young people have a mindset of court, of cops, of judges. When you can remove some of those things, some of those traumatizations, you provide not just the family, but the young people with an opportunity to succeed and be successful. So I think the strength is that they've allowed for us to be a intervention and prevention model at the same time, informing and supporting. And that wasn't the case. That was not the model. That just was not the practice. And so having that exist now, families and folks involved in care can see the light at the end of the tunnel. They understand the rules, and they understand the power that they actually have even while they're in care. So allowing for us to be DHS was so far removed before, besides just bombarding and, as people would say, just coming into your home. But being a familiar face outside in the community when I'm not knocking at your door makes when I have to knock at your door a different thing. And so that is the strength of, and I can speak for all the CUAs, but I have to take pride in my CUA, because we have one of the most difficult populations. As an Afro-Latino, it is hard for us to get information that is shared among those two populations, those heavily demographics in this population. But we do it, and we're able to supply for them, and we're able to speak a language that they understand, and they can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So those are definitely some of the strengths of the CUAs that I've seen taking place over the past 10 years through this transformation.
That's awesome. That is so awesome what you and Florence said. And we can't forget that sometimes life happens. And, for me, working at Northwest Victim Services, think about that domestic violence victim who just has to get away from his or her abuser, and they have children, and they don't have the means to move. And they may have to sleep outside in their car with their children, but that does not make them bad parents. So sometimes they need resources to be able to properly care for their children. It doesn't mean that their children need to be removed from them. It means that they need a strong support system to be able to get out of an abusive situation and to be able to care for their children and for themselves. So it's great to know that DHS, it's great to know that the community-based agencies, I keep saying community-based agencies, community umbrella agencies, that's because Northwest Victim Services is a community-based agency.
Yes.
Community umbrella agency. So, I get Northwest Victim Services in anywhere that I can.
As
but
you
the
should.
Umbrella agencies are there to assist these families, which I think is very important. Florence and Wilbur, I take my hat off to you for caring for those children and caring for those families and being support systems for those in need. I thank you so much. And what you have a hard job. I thought my job was hard. Caring for the babies, that's a hard job. So I take my hat off to you, and I thank you so much for everything that you were doing. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Well, we thank you, and I thank you for the opportunity for allowing for us to expand on this message and expand on the work that is being done throughout the city of Philadelphia, and just allowing for us to have another platform to inform folks about the work that's happening through the community umbrella agencies as well. Not every CUA has an aftercare service, and so we're lucky to be able to provide that additional support to families once they've reunified. So, this is really good information on what you guys are doing, and just allowing us to come in and really be a voice for our families is great as well. So thank you, Melany, and thank you, Florence, for the invite as well.
You're more than welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. This show was very, very educational. So we do know that DHS and the community umbrella agencies are here to help us in our community. They're here to help our families stay together and they're here to help care for our children. So please, please do what is right for your family. And if you need help, do not hesitate to reach out to DHS or one of the community umbrella agencies in your neighborhood. Peace and blessings.